I worked at a movie theater for a few years, and some of the coolest people I've ever met, I met at that job. People who run these theaters care about the theatrical experience, but for some reason, theaters seem to be struggling all the time. I think one of the many reasons for that is they just aren't putting in movies people want to see. Obviously, the rise of streaming and ticket prices hasn't helped, but people will go to the theater if you make them want to go. At the end of the year when the Oscars roll around, there are always plenty of films that my friends and I want to see but can't, because they aren't showing in any theater outside of LA or New York City, and it's incredibly frustrating. This year, Highest to Lowest played in barely any theaters just for it to get put on Apple TV+, and every year there are multiple Best Picture contenders that I would have loved to have seen in theaters, but I had to watch online or on streaming. During the late summer and fall, however, there are almost too many good options, but during months like February and March, there will be weeks where there's nothing I want to see. Theatergoers for years have been saying we want movies in theaters from the past, re-releases of films that have defined our film journeys. Imagine your first viewing of The Godfather got to be on the big screen surrounded by excited moviegoers. If you have months where nothing is really coming out, especially if you live in an average Midwest city, why not fill this dead space with classics? You might be thinking, Finn, why not go to the random limited screenings of classic films? I hate Fathom Events. Up until this September, or the occasional showings of Harry Potter and other franchise films, Fathom Events has been my only option to see re-released films in theaters. In 2022, when The Thing was being screened nationwide, so many fans were shocked to see the film was projected in terrible quality. Oftentimes, Fathom movies will be poorly mixed or look not nearly as good as other showings in the same theater. The way Fathom Events work is they often are broadcasted from a signal from a DVR and then connected to the theater directly. The films aren't running off a drive like most movies, they're basically streaming it to your projector, and that doesn't often produce great results. Also, they don't let you use your Regal Unlimited membership that you pay for to see all movies at a Regal, yet they are always being shown at Regals near me. In September 2025, Regal introduced maybe one of the greatest things I've experienced as a film fan. Their first ever month of masterpieces, basically Christmas for film obsessives. Each day of September, they show a different classic film for a few select showtimes each day, and the movies they chose were amazing. Not only did they pick Hall of Famers like Vertigo, Casablanca, and 2001: A Space Odyssey, but they chose movies that would be elevated by a theatrical experience, like Lawrence of Arabia, Inception, Saving Private Ryan, and Pan's Labyrinth. I love that they chose movies from all eras and plenty of different genres. One night you could see a 70s romance film, and a few nights later see a sci-fi epic. This is what I've always dreamed of, being able to go to the theater on any given night and see one of the greatest films ever made. And I know I sound like a Regal shill here, and trust me, I'm not, but this seems to have solved every complaint modern audiences have had with going to the movie theater. Any given night, you could see a great movie at a great price with relatively cheap snacks. I just want to recognize the awesome opportunity that this was. Seeing so many of my favorite movies in theaters was an unforgettable experience. Hopefully though, if they do this again, they'll put them in more theaters nationwide. I wasn't able to see nearly as many films as I wanted to, as the closest theater that was showing these movies was 30 minutes away from me. But I did see some great movies, and I thought it'd be fun to rank every film I saw. I haven't seen many Hitchcock films at the time of writing this, but from what I have seen, I can easily understand why he has the reputation of being the master of suspense. This was my first viewing of Vertigo, and my expectations were pretty high going in, as it seemed near the top of every director's top 10 favorite list. I found the film to be captivating, thrilling, and stunning to look at. Vertigo was shot in VistaVision, a near-extinct film format that has been brought back by recent films like The Brutalist and One Battle After Another, and you can see why these directors want to shoot in that format. The cinematography was absolutely gorgeous, and the level of detail Hitchcock captured by shooting in this format was unreal. Not only was it filmed in this gorgeous film stock, but it's colored in Technicolor, which made every frame pop and shine in an almost otherworldly way. The colors not only look good, but their vibrant nature makes their thematic usage way more noticeable. The film has themes of obsession, as our lead is a detective going further and further down a dangerous rabbit hole and is spiraling out of control. This is not only represented by the consistent spiral shape we see in the opening and the literal definition of having vertigo, but by the repetition of certain locations and set pieces. We follow our lead as he goes to the same places and does the same things, but as the film goes on, things slowly get revealed as more dangerous than the time before. The film is from the late 50s, but has a great pace and keeps you guessing throughout the entire runtime. The central mystery was really compelling and left a pretty big impression on me. I completely get the hype and see why some consider this to be one of the greatest films ever made. It's weird to see what's known as maybe the best film ever made ranked so low, but that speaks to the amount of stone-cold classics I got to see this month. Citizen Kane is frequently regarded as the peak of the art form by many, and it's easy to see why. From what I've seen, movies just didn't look or feel like this in the early 1940s. I found this movie to be so watchable, more than most movies I've seen from that era. The pace is pretty brisk in the first half, and I found the back half to be pretty emotionally resonant. The themes of regret, how you can't define someone with just one word, and how there's always more to someone than what meets the eye. It has anti-establishment views on how information is controlled, which feels simultaneously of its time and ahead of its time. It's incredible. The sense of scale is just out of this world. Using what I assume are matte paintings and other in-camera tricks, the film just feels impossibly huge. This is one of the best representations of how to do a biopic in a compelling way. The narrative framing of the film is so creative, and I kind of forgot the film is structured essentially around interviews of people who knew the fictional Charles Foster Kane. The film is framed almost as a puzzle or a mystery, but as it unfolds, you realize there is so much more to the story than just what Rosebud is. The editing and visual style of this made it really stand out. I can't believe Orson Welles was just 25 when he directed and starred in this. I think that if you have a hard time with older movies, you could find this pretty interesting without it feeling grueling. Just put your phone away and give this one the attention it deserves. The Godfather is one of those movies that feels bigger than life itself. Growing up, this movie was as famous to me as McDonald's or Coca-Cola or Star Wars. It was an American institution. And this movie, like a few others on this list, is the kind of movie that is touted as one of the greatest American films ever made, and then you watch it and you're like, yeah, it really is. I struggle to find things to say about how incredible this is that hasn't already been said, but what really struck me on this viewing specifically was the cinematography. Maybe it was the scale of seeing it on a 50-foot screen, but the colors and the way the legendary Gordon Willis shoots shadows were mesmerizing. Scenes in the house are drenched in warm yellow hues and the deepest black shadows you've ever seen, and then it cuts to dazzlingly bright, jovial wedding scenes. The visual identity is just so good and seriously influential on the types of movies made after this, at least in this subgenre. But none do it as well as it's done here. The characters are fully realized into people you just want to spend time with, even if it means you might end up sleeping with the fishes. Anytime I'm watching a scene with the family and the characters are talking about strategy or their plans for the future, where you get a glimpse of the inner dynamics of a crime family, I can't think of anything more entertaining than that. And the stacked ensemble cast only elevates these scenes. With obvious standouts like Brando and James Caan, but Al Pacino really made an incredible impression on me this viewing. There are some great moments of subtlety with his performance, like this one-off line at the wedding scene.
That's a true story.
Michael recounts this story to his girlfriend of his father acting as an enforcer to a music executive, and the way he ends it, you can't fully tell if he's really on board with his family's lifestyle or not. Later in the film is where you see him truly get activated, but this scene gives us a glimpse into Michael's character that he might not be as separate from his family as he thinks he is. His face acting in the restaurant scene is also just one of my favorite acting moments in film history. It's just brilliant. The day after I saw this in theaters, I booted it up again to watch at home because despite the film's serious subject matter, I find this film really cozy to watch. I can see myself watching this film again and again for the rest of my life, and I honestly can't think of a better compliment than that. Seven is one of the most gorgeous films I have ever seen, and I don't say that lightly. It's an odd descriptor for a very disturbing film about a serial killer that mutilates his victims in increasingly gruesome ways, but it's an accurate one. The look of this film is pitch perfect for the story it's trying to tell. It's cast in deep yellow and dark blue greens that make the film feel grimy and dirty, but not in a cheap way. This movie walks the tightrope of feeling nasty and looking lived in, while also being exceptionally shot and looking expensive. David Fincher and Darius Khondji make it look easy, but if you watch a lot of current movies, you know that most don't even come close to looking this good. And it's not just how it looks, it's how it feels. In Seven, you follow two detectives as they chase a serial killer committing murders inspired by the 7 deadly sins. And immediately, you are thrust into this hopeless, depressing world our characters manage to somehow live in. Taking place in an unnamed city rampant with violent crime, it's always raining, and our characters are getting drenched every time they step outside. Their apartment rattles with the sound of the subway, and the walls look caked with dirt. At certain points, it feels like you're in hell. This depressing setting is not only reflected in Detective Somerset's arc thematically, but also literally a part of his arc. He's retiring and can't wait to get out of this hell he has called home for the past few decades. As the film goes on, Somerset starts in this dark place. He is as hopeless for humanity as the city he lives in. By the end, his outlook on the world has maybe softened, or his worst feelings have been reaffirmed, but he chooses to recognize the good in the world. The visuals are on another level, but the score is just as good. Moments of tension will be even more intense just because of this pounding, haunting soundtrack. This movie is thrilling and says a lot on the surface, but it's also not afraid to be subtle. There will be shots of Morgan Freeman's character where the actor says so much in just a glance, moments that are paid off in future viewings. The way this film deals with its characters is one of the things that sets it apart from its contemporaries. It's a pretty mature story, but not just because it follows a serial killer. It's the kind of movie that a teenager could love because it's sick and twisted, but an older audience could enjoy it for what it says about the human condition and relate to themes of apathy and growing callous to the world around you. Its main character is a man about to retire, and it was cool that the only other people in the theater with me when I saw it were a couple in their 70s. This isn't a cookie-cutter police procedural, and it's also not a cheesy slasher. It's something more, and its influence speaks for itself. We legitimately would not have films like Memories of Murder, Cure, The Batman, Prisoners, or even Fincher's own Zodiac, and for that, I am eternally grateful for Seven. Some of these movies may be flawless masterpieces in their own right, but they just aren't Seven. Goodfellas is a top 10 film of all time for me, probably my favorite film that Regal showed all month, outside of The Departed, my favorite film of all time, which I sadly could not attend. Something I didn't really consider when I thought of making this video is how hard it would be to rank so many 5-star masterpieces. In a ranking, how do you differentiate how good something is compared to the rest of the films when they are all some of the best films ever made? Before the month started, I knew that if I didn't get to see The Departed, that this would top my ranking. This film is just in a league of its own. I spoke earlier about The Godfather and its mastery of film, but Goodfellas is just as good in its own way. You can see the influence The Godfather had on this, and frankly every mob movie, but Goodfellas added something new to the mafia movie equation: its energy. This film moves at a breakneck pace and is easily one of the most entertaining movies you will ever see. There are always new characters to meet, new places to see, new things to learn, and it's not just the editing that is fast and expertly done, it's the way the camera moves. It's static when it needs to be, but it feels like it's always moving around. It's the surrogate for the audience. In the famous Copacabana one take, a shot that has influenced countless movies over the last 3 decades, the audience follows Henry as he leads Karen and you, the viewer, directly into the world of luxury and family that is the mob, and the first half of this movie. You start to get intoxicated just like Karen does, and are won over by the charming cast and just straight up fun time hanging out with mobsters seems to be. By the end though, the camera and editing are quick in a different way, almost panic-stricken as the characters become more paranoid and things get scarier. The influence of this movie cannot be overstated, even just with its soundtrack. In The Godfather, you have a wonderful score, but Goodfellas is a film scored by a soundtrack of classics and everything from crooner music to 60s rock. It might not have been the first film to do a jukebox-style soundtrack, but I don't think another film has done it better. This film is overflowing with memorable characters and is endlessly quotable. Everything about this film is near perfect, and it's one of my favorite films to revisit, no matter how many times I've seen it. Scorsese proves time and time again that he is one of the greatest to ever do it, if not the greatest, and this film shows you why.
This was my home theater. This was one of my earliest jobs working as a movie theater employee. This is where I saw movies like Avengers 2012, Dark Knight Rises, and Amazing Spider-Man all in one summer, which changed my life as a 12-year-old and turned me on to movies. I've seen countless movies here, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Parasite, and so many classics that have become all-time favorites. I was working here when the theater got closed down, and right now they're demolishing it from the inside out, and it's really sad.
This theater closed in 2023, but while making this video, my other local theater closed down too. Now the closest movie theater chain to me is over 20 minutes away, and it bums me out because that's just not how you create a culture that loves seeing films. Seeing my beloved childhood movie theater be demolished at the same time where movie collecting is on the rise and movies are constantly being eventized is bittersweet. People love movies, and that hopefully will never change, but I hope we can continue to show up and support the filmmakers at the same time. Regal's Month of Masterpieces promotion is exactly what movie theaters need to be doing in 2025. When it's a slow season or you don't have huge films debuting in theaters, why not fill that space with stone-cold classics that people love? With an industry seemingly obsessed with IP, it's weird to me that studios have taken this long to recognize the wealth of great films they have in their vaults. If Regal does this again, it needs to be expanded to many more theaters nationwide, so more people have the opportunity to go see their favorite films in theaters. During September, there were not a ton of blockbusters that were coming out. Most theaters could have sacrificed a screen or two each day to show films like The Godfather or Citizen Kane. I hope other theaters take notes and keep showing classic films at prices people can pay. I know there are plenty of rep theaters in LA and New York, but in small towns across the country, this is pretty much people's only option to see their favorite films on the big screen. Tickets in general aren't getting any cheaper, and they can be too expensive for families, so the discounted tickets and concessions is a great incentive. At the time of writing this, Regal announced they are showing a variety of horror films in October, and this is exactly what I want to see. Hopefully we can keep getting audiences excited about being in the theater, so our future generations will be able to enjoy this incredible foundational activity. Because if not, I'm worried that seeing films on the big screen and going to the movies will become a thing of the past. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.